welcome everybody. Let's talk real estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California. As we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man right in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul, and good morning to all of our viewers and our listeners out there. It's Tuesday. We are talking real estate, and guess what? It is Tuesday. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company, managing partner of Saywitz Properties, and if it's one thing I've learned in my 30-plus years of doing this, it's to try and surround yourself with good people, get informed, make good business decisions, and try and have some fun. And so that's what we're going to try and do today. I'm excited about our show and our guest, but before we get going, I do want to do a quick shout out to the Lakers, who did win last night and are now one win away. So anyone who's a big Laker fan or who's been yearning for the Lakers to make their comeback, they're close. So good luck. And with that, I want to welcome our guest, the esteemed mayor of the city of Lake Forest, Doug CIrbo. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Well, thank you. Good morning to you, Barry. Thank you very much for the invitation to be with you today.
Yeah, so today's show is a continuation. Our month of May is really sort of a focus and a spotlight on South Orange County. And no one better to come in than you and talk about Lake Forest, which is right in the middle of the mix of the different cities in South Orange County, and talk about the history of the city, what's going on there, and what the future holds. But before we get into that, I guess I want to talk about your history. I mean, you're a longtime resident of Orange County.
Yes.
And have watched not only the entire county, but South Orange County really grow. And I think it goes back to your days in the military. And I guess talk about how you came to Orange County and what made you stay.
Sure. So I grew up in Colorado, graduated from high school there, and then had an interest still to pursue music. And so I was opening up a magazine one day, Downbeat, and it said, hey, you could be a Marine Corps musician and get your benefits and serve your country. So that's what I did. And so I did my boot camp in San Diego, went to the East Coast of Norfolk for the Naval Amphibious Base School of Music, ended up back here at El Toro, the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, swing with the wing, type of thing. So that's how I ended up here in El Toro, and then stayed in the area, and then ended up working here, going to school here, and married my wife and raised my kids. So
Never left.
Yeah, never left.
No
right.
reason.
Been in Portola Hills now for 37 years.
So, and when you first got there to Portola Hills, it was a lot of hills and not much else of anything else, correct?
We were driving out in the canyon one day, and we ended up number 12 on the camp out, and had to stay there for a couple of weeks to get the home. But yeah, it was very much rural. My wife actually came here, her family, in the 60s, before there was actually a freeway. They lived on Bridger right there at El Toro and had to go to South Coast Plaza. But yeah, we were just driving out in the canyon one day, and they had homes for sale, and we stuck around and got on there, number 12 on the camp out, and been there ever since.
And it's interesting because I remember in the 80s and the 90s, the developers would announce a new tract of homes or a new development that came online, and literally there was either a lottery or you had to just wait because there was more people that wanted the homes than there were homes to give out. And you were really just buying a plot, and then you had to wait until the thing got built, all right?
Exactly, right. Can't remember, August 15th, 1983 when we moved in. So
and then I don't mean to demean it, but I mean Portola Hills was the sticks, right? It was really rural and really far out because at that time, really the crux of Orange County in terms of the business hub and where most of the development was really around South Coast Plaza, around the airport, Newport Beach. Really South Orange County, just not a lot going on, sleepy kind of towns.
Yeah, we had coyotes and mountain lions and all sorts of wildlife out there, and still do to this day. But it's a very interesting area out there.
And I think what happened then still really holds true today from a real estate perspective, in that you got a lot more value for your dollar. You got more land, relatively speaking, and you got to be a pioneer in an area that would then develop around you.
Yeah, with all the different changes and regulations these days for real estate, that's interesting you make that comment because it has evolved into a different environment in terms of, RENA and some of those housing elements that we have to deal with in terms of the city council and future planning now too. But yeah.
And then you again, way back when you had houses, but you didn't have all the retail. You really did have to drive to South Coast to go to the mall you know, 10 or 15 minutes to get to the grocery store. It was considered out there, and now you've got good schools, you've got parks, you've got master planning, and you've got all the infrastructure, but yet still have that rural environment.
Yeah, it makes the quality of life something that we just did a survey with our residents every couple of years, and nearly 90% of the residents say the quality of life is excellent or great. And so we're kind of proud of that, and just trying to keep that culture as things evolve and as the city, gets to a point of transitioning from a development type of city to a maintenance type of city, where there's not much that more land to really be developed, but now we're going to be going into this mixed use concept and things of that nature. But yes, it really been a change.
And South Orange County as a whole really has evolved. I mean, we were talking earlier, I remember when the spectrum was just getting going in the late 80s and early 90s, and people would question, why are you going to the spectrum? Like, there's nothing there. And those were the pioneers, and geez, you shoulda, woulda. I mean, you bought stuff down there, you'd be a hero today. But now, and we see it in our own business, a lot of companies really want to be located in South Orange County because the executives live down there and they want to be closer to home, and there's just not enough real estate as a whole on the commercial side because you have this master planning concept. So it really makes the real estate on the commercial side that much more valuable because there's just limited supply.
We've actually had some recent topics regarding the commercial real estate. You're probably aware that a lot of cities are facing pressure for logistics and warehouse type of organizations. And even right next to us in Irvine, we're seeing all these buildings, these tilt-ups, these nondescript white buildings that are set up for, the WB65, the big 18-wheel trucks. And so we've had developers that have come to us and wanting that same kind of thing. So on our city council and our planning commission and our city as a whole, we're just trying to make sure that we maintain the culture and figure out how do we balance the needs of the last mile delivery for products and just the environment that we have and the quality of life that we have. So it's been something we've had to deal with just recently, as a matter of fact, with developers and figuring out how do we work together, because when Lake Forest, or El Toro as it used to be known, the infrastructure, the streets weren't set up for these wide turns, for example. So there's right-of-way issues, there's reconstruction that would be necessary. And so we're just looking at all those certain things and just figuring out what makes sense for Lake Forest.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. And so for those who are not familiar with the city of Lake Forest, it's a relatively young city.
32 years.
And what was originally known as the city of El Toro because, I guess, of the base, right?
Yes.
And then ultimately, as the city has grown and developed, I mean, you can explain it better than I, but the city has incorporated certain neighborhoods or areas to really form the city of Lake Forest and what it is today.
Yeah, in an ideal world, when you lay out a city, you would put commercial all together, and you'd have residential in a different area and recreational things. But the city has evolved in such that we've got pockets of little strip mall type places. We've got larger commercial enterprises, and we've got residential. They're all kind of mixed, together throughout the 17 square miles in Lake Forest. So it's kind of unique in terms of how it's evolved. And I think the staff and the commissions and the councils over the years have really done a tremendous job in terms of managing that.
Yeah, and the dynamic of the city, while it is not as big or the population is not as large as maybe some other surrounding cities, the fact of the matter is it is somewhat diverse in that you really are dealing with all of the different aspects of the real estate, whether it's the industrial piece, whether it's the office piece, the retail piece, and then not only residential housing, but now some multifamily housing to try and accommodate for just the overall demand for housing in general that we have here in Southern California.
Yeah, that's a whole complicated issue in terms of how do you provide housing for people to be able to work and live in a community and make it somewhat affordable, and just balance that out with all the needs, whether it's high density housing or it's mixed use type applications, or trying to find plots of land that developers can still be profitable, or subsidizing things with affordable housing type. It's a big formula to have to solve.
And are you dealing with all of those? I'm assuming it's all relative scale based on the size of the city, but these are all, we've had other mayors from other cities on, and these are all real things that every city is really dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just the challenge of bringing good people together. And I'll just give kudos to our staff at the city, plus the commissions that we have, and the great job that they're doing and really caring about how this evolvement happens in a way that fits our culture.
And let's break it down a little bit in pieces. On the residential side, historically, mostly single-family homes in the city, but really now there is a decent amount of multifamily, whether it's smaller multifamily, and then trying to get some bigger pieces developed so that you can have the workers that are working at some of these service industries and some of these other companies not having a big long commute.
Yeah, and being sensitive to that whole situation, and then taking other things into consideration, such as the traffic and how that's going to impact when you have more density in a given area. So there's a lot of factors that come into play, and so it's one thing if you just say, well, we need to put more housing in, we're going to do multi-use type housing, or just pack people in, then you're going to affect other things. So we're trying to think long term and really look at the big picture in terms of how that housing element gets taken care of.
Yeah, and all of the infrastructure that was set up originally, whether it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago, is now, I don't want to say obsolete, but it's stressed as a result of the growth.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to just mention about the city, and most of these cities do have a strategic plan. So there's a 40-year plan that we have, and then we review our strategic plan elements every 2 years, and then constantly looking at situations that come up in front of us too. So the fact that there's great people that have expertise and competence in these areas to help guide us as a council for oversight and making decisions that's consistent with the culture that we want to maintain.
So it's not only addressing the short-term requirements, but at the same time looking out for the long term of the city.
Yes, exactly.
So one of the things I was going to ask you is, how did you decide? I mean, your business background is really in the telecom world,
yes,
right? For a long time,
right?
And so how did you get from that into the political side of things? What was the light bulb that went off, or ditch you fell in, or how'd it go?
Well, I love when people ask me that story, because I think a lot of people have a similar story, but mine, I think, is somewhat unique. So I had no political ambitions at all. And I've had a real history in terms of service, to my community and whatnot. So there was a gentleman on the city council who was assigned as the interim council member because one dropped off. So Mike James, who is in law enforcement here in Orange County, very familiar guy. My kids grew up with him. He decided not to run. And we do our elections by district in Lake Forest, like most cities.
Right.
So I'm up in Portola Hills, District 1. So Mike James decided he wasn't going to run. So Scott Voits, who's been on the council for a long time, very familiar guy in politics here in Orange County as well, he and Mike James said, who can we invite to fill this seat? And they said, oh, Doug CIrbo. And so they asked me. I looked at what was going to be involved. My wife and I prayed about, is this something that I really want to move into? And so I got kind of in the race a little bit late, but through my Marine Corps service, I was at Saddleback Church in the music ministry for 10 years and the kids ministry for 10 years. I've done Little League Baseball umpiring, been a regional commissioner for soccer and area director for AYSO for 25 years. So some people say, well, you should change your name from CIrbo to CIrbo. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. But so I had a lot of good name recognition for service. So short story, during COVID, this is in 2020 when I was running for this position, and we just walked the neighborhoods, and I got some nice endorsements, and just wrote on my public service in the community, and decided, okay, this is another way that I can maybe use my skills and talents and hopefully bring some value to the city in terms of this role in the city council. So that's how I got started. We got in the race late, as I mentioned, and that year a lot of people came out to vote. 8,700 votes were cast in District 1. So you look at your president and your senators and your congresspeople, who votes for the city council members, right? Who knows about that? Well, there were 8,700 votes that were cast in District 1 with 5 other people who were running for that seat. I won by 22 votes.
Wow. And so thank goodness that a lot of people play soccer and go to church, and you were able to pull that off. And then you get involved right in the COVID, sort of drama, which is its own animal in of itself, and trying to deal with running the city and keeping things going and keeping things moving while you have all this other stuff going on. So interesting time to get involved. It's not like you rode somebody else's wave and got in at the top of it. You really had to roll up your sleeves, I'm guessing, right when you got in.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'll give credit back to our city staff. that have a really a lot of great people that we have there. And so whether it was setting up vaccination stations or education or helping people, working with Saddleback Church, for example, and food pantries and other local organizations to help people that were really struggling during that time. But also, for us as a city council to see, all right, what kind of things do we need to put into place to try and help people, manage this. And so our own city staff, we continue to have what we call an A and a B shift. So there was kind of a skeleton crew, but we didn't actually shut down City Hall, for example. Yeah. We kept things running. So we decided that, we're going to put things in place. We're going to manage this as best we can. We're going to follow the Orange County medical advice that they had and the figures that were coming out and figure out how to respond appropriately.
Yeah, interesting times. And so then we fast forward to today. So is the staff back full time, or you still have some people working remotely, and how's that working today?
Yeah, good question. So we're pretty much back to a regular schedule. We have just one Friday, we have an A and a B shift that we kind of have it cut down to. But yes, we're back to full staff at the city, and so all the services are available to people, and we're conducting business as usual.
And in terms of the city's MO and your own, I guess, position relative to it, you're a business guy. What is the city's position? I know there are certain cities, and I won't mention them, that are more pro-business versus others that are not so much. What's the city in general's position relative to the businesses that are located there and then trying to attract more?
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that too. On our city council, we have folks that work for water districts and work for Don Wagner's, Scott
Sure.
Voight does that, and other people. So there's only pretty much two people that are on the council that are business folks. And so we've always purported that Lake Forest is a business-friendly city. And breaking that down, so how do we do that? So we don't charge a license fee. There's no business license fee for businesses here in Lake Forest. So that's something. We have a very active Chamber of Commerce that has over a couple hundred members and still growing, and providing resources and tools for businesses to thrive in there. And the folks that come to Lake Forest have told me from other cities that your folks on your staff internally at the city in terms of getting permitting and
Right.
getting tenant improvement plans through, you guys are the best. So we make it easy for businesses to come here. We try and attract them with least amount of obstacles possible for them to succeed. And we also engage them for our Chamber of Commerce and tools and mixers and things to help drive revenue for them and be successful.
And I'm going to guess, but I'll ask the question, create more of a tighter knit community for the business environment, because the group of companies that you have certainly some bigger employers, but the majority of them, I'm guessing, are small to middle-sized businesses.
Yeah, and I'm actually discovering some of the interesting types of businesses that we have. And one of the things recently, since COVID, of course, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, every city got dollars from the federal government to help mitigate COVID relief. So we thought, what can we do to use these dollars, these resources, in the best way to help businesses recover? So hotels were hit hard, restaurants were hit hard, other businesses in the city, electrical contractors, construction, legal services, the whole gamut.
Right.
What can we do to help those people get back on their feet? So we took millions of dollars out of the ARPA money that we were given, and we came up with a program that we call our Dine and Shop program, or BOGO, buy one, get one. Here's how it works. You go to our website and you purchase a digital MasterCard, let's say for $100. And we have a third party that manages this for us. And so now on your phone, you have a digital MasterCard. You go into Kuka's Mexican restaurant and you show them this MasterCard. They enter the number, and you basically have paid for your meal. But that $100 that you purchased, we took the ARPA money and we doubled that.
Oh, interesting.
And it's only for Lake Forest residents and Lake Forest businesses. So the money goes to Lake
Stays in
Forest
the
residents, helps them get back on their feet, have dollars to spend, and businesses are now driving revenue. So I went to a restaurant that I'd never been before because it's on our list of approved businesses. And so now I'm a customer because they signed up to be part of this program.
Neat. So that's good
Additionally, catalytic converter, public safety, thefts that are occurring in every city these days. That's
Right.
a big topic. We also developed a program that allowed residents to purchase a voucher that would allow them to put the steel plates underneath their car, or they could get their VIN number etched onto their catalytic converter. And then we added an ordinance that made it a misdemeanor if you're caught with a trunk full of catalytic converters and don't have proof of it.
Right.
So that's another thing that we did also to help drive revenue for our local shops that are now taking care of that, and also addressing public safety. So we really tried to use those dollars in a way that was creative and to the best use of our residents and businesses.
That's good. And in terms of the future of Lake Forest, what are some of the bigger picture things that you're dealing with? We've talked to other cities, and it ranges from, homelessness to certainly making sure that the businesses are successful and thriving, to the master planning and sort of redevelopment. Is there one or two things that are sort of the hot buttons on the city council's agenda to deal with at the moment that you're...
Yeah, let me kind of touch on a couple things. The first thing that kind of comes to mind is, of course, in California, marijuana is legal, but federally it's still a controlled substance. So I took an oath to the Constitution of the state of California and to the United States of America. And so the council, when I became a member, we basically said that marijuana sales in Lake Forest are going to continue to be illegal. And so we're pursuing that very aggressively, and we have a system now that used to take 6 to 8 to 10 weeks to shut down these marijuana dispensaries down to less than a week.
Interesting.
It's been like whack-a-mole. You shut
Right.
one down, another one pops up. And so that's something that we just think is a value that we're going to protect the businesses and the residents who are not in favor of that, and we're going to substantiate the law that's still in place. Okay,
Gotcha.
so marijuana dispensaries being illegal in the city of Lake Forest. All right.
So for those out there that are in that industry, you probably want to pick another city.
Thank you very much. Right, because we are hard and fast about making sure that if they're only up in business for a week, I mean they make little money, but it's not going to be profitable for them to do that. And we actually are able to seize assets too. So. Yeah, thank you for that advertising.
Just a suggestion for those out there, right? And then in terms of the housing side of thing and the homeless side of thing, I mean, I think homelessness is an issue statewide, nationwide, and certain areas are hit harder more than others. But Southern California, like, if you're homeless, there are worse places you could be, right, with the weather and the beach and the environment. And does the city really struggle with that, or not so much because of the geographics of the city and just the topography of how it's set up?
Yeah, that's a good point in terms of where the city is located. And to address that, again, we're trying to figure out what's the most compassionate thing that we can do with this complicated issue. And so with our Orange County Sheriff Department contract services that we have two dedicated resources called HLO. These are the Homeless Liaison Officers.
Yeah.
So they're proactively going out into our city, and after our point in time counts, people probably know that every once in a while we go out and we actually survey, say how many homeless do we have at any given time, a snapshot of that. And I just went on a ride along with one of our deputies a couple of weeks ago to see this for myself and see these resources in action. So it's not like we're just not doing anything about homelessness. As complicated as it is, that we're trying to do compassionate things. So that these HLO officers, they're going out and they're reaching out to people and trying to see. There's great resources. You got Families Forward, you got Mercy House, you got South County Outreach. Those are all serving Lake Forest so well and helping people
And
get
even
the
the
resources.
VA, right? I mean,
And the VA, right? All those different population groups that need that help. And so we're trying to make sure that we do the most compassionate thing and help those people get plugged into the resources that are available to them. So I know other cities probably have a bigger problem with that. We recognize that. I don't think homelessness is ever going to go away. I think it's going to be something we just have to manage the best way possible, and that's what our tactic is.
And we had Don Barnes, the Orange County Sheriff, on the show, and he was talking about, I mean, it's twofold, because number one, you want to get the people the help that they need and the resources so that they're off the streets and doing better than where they were. The other side is you want to free up your law enforcement resources to be able to fight the bigger issues that are out there in terms of crime prevention and safety for the community. And so the better you do at the homelessness, the more resources you have to focus in other places. And so I think that's a constant struggle everywhere.
Yeah, that's what we decided to have dedicated resources, people who are trained specifically on how to deal with that population, whether they're suffering from, mental situations or addictions or single mothers who have just been displaced from whatever economic factors that have occurred, and now getting them plugged into really good resources. So we're proud of the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant funds that we also use to help support that. We just had a $1.6 million housing element that we gave to Families Forward to purchase a property and house a number of people that way too. So yes,
it's all good stuff. And so we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to touch on a couple of things quickly. So in terms of the city's growth going forward, where do you see? I'll take it in the short term, because long term I think that there's much bigger plans. But in the short term, between now and the end of the year, do you see the things that are going on globally and nationally with the economy affecting what's going on in the city, whether that's home sales, whether that's people's spending habits, whether that's inflation, and what are some of the things that I guess keep you up at night in terms of just how those things might affect what's going on in your backyard?
Yeah, of course, sales tax revenue is something that's important to the city. And I guess the short story I would say is that Lake Forest is doing very well financially. We have reserves that are better than most cities in California. We're debt-free in terms of our obligations. We don't have any unfunded pensions. In terms of our housing element, we're one of the cities that's got that approved. 60% of cities don't have that. And so this is the future look. We've got projects that are coming online. We've got a senior affordable housing in Portola in my neck of the woods that's opening up here this September, as well as the Mountain View project with 71 units for affordable housing. We've got another senior affordable housing in the Meadows. And so those are kind of the last developments that are there. And then we've also got a really good plan in place for the future for this mixed use concept that we've talked about as well. So in terms of the economy, we've seen our hotels pop back really strongly, and our restaurants, and so I think we've been very fortunate in terms of the business community doing well, and 98% of the people are paying their property taxes, is what the Orange County tax collector tells me in terms of our resources. So great.
As long as they keep paying, you got to keep money coming in and put it back to use. And I mean, my perspective of the city of Lake Forest, and not only from you and the rest of the city council, but down to the staff, is that it really is a proactive approach, and you do have a plan in place, and you seem to be very successful in implementing it. And so I would just say, from the outsider looking in, I want to thank you and your staff and everyone else for all the things that you do for the city to make it better and to help out.
Yeah, well, it's been my honor to serve in this way, and just want to make sure it continue to drive the culture and the benefits and the financial security and all the amenities that we have here in Lake Forest. So I really appreciate you having me on today.
So if people want to find out more about the city or the resources or the things you have going on, what's the website that they can go to?
Yes, it's www.lakeforestca.gov. There's a Lake Forest in Illinois, so it's lakeforestca.gov. And then my own email address is my first initial D, CIrbo, CIrbo, at lakeforestca.gov.
Got it. And so for those thinking about moving to South Orange County, Lake Forest certainly at the top of my list in terms of places to look and to go. If you're a marijuana user, I would probably go someplace else. But I do appreciate all the input and the insight that you have, and appreciate you coming on talking about the city, and much continued success to you, your family, and the city, and thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks, Barry. It's been great meeting you and sharing some time with you today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm Barry Saywitz. On behalf of everybody here, I want to thank all the folks at OC Talk Radio for putting the show on every week. I want to thank all of our viewers and our listeners for tuning in. I'm Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company. We will see you back here next week on Let's Talk Real Estate.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied